Alright guys, what's going on? And welcome to the channel. Welcome to another BMW 330i ZHP sedan Amola Red video. I know it's a mouthful, but it is pretty meaningful to address the car properly, because this is not just any old E46. So I bought this ZHP in April of this year. Right now it's December, so this is more or less an 8-month update. I bought it with about 112 or 113,000 miles. Now we're at 116,000, so I haven't really put a lot of mileage on this car. Part of the reason is that I only go into the office twice a week, and in general I also have the Raptor, so I'm kind of splitting daily duties between two cars. So regardless, I'm not really probably going to put a lot of miles on this thing. I want to share with you guys sort of the rationale why someone actually likes this car, because originally I wasn't really interested in the ZHP. I always thought the E46 M3 was the one to get, and I think for performance aspect it definitely is. So although I haven't put a ton of miles on the ZHP so far, I figured it would still be kind of beneficial to give you guys sort of an 8-month update. You know, what have I spent money on, what have been the headaches, and sort of my impressions. So I also want to share with you guys sort of why the ZHP is relevant, or might be a car that you would want to get over an M3, or even just in general. So the reason why a car like this is pretty cool is because when they released the E46 M3, they never had a 4-door option. And if you had to have 4 doors and you wanted a manual and you liked the E46 platform, you know, this was the one to get. The ZHP is essentially the M Sport of that era. So it has a few of the big differences are the 18-inch wheels. They're they have the little M logo on them. It has different interior trim. The gauges have orange needles. The bumpers are different, and aesthetically it has a few different tweaks like that. The shadow line trim, but more than anything, it actually has a lot of suspension changes. Control arms, the shocks are a little bit stiffer, the ride height's a little bit lower. I think it also has a shorter final drive gear ratio, has 10 more horsepower than the regular E46, and the red line is increased from 6,500 to 6,800. So it gives you a much more sporty feeling, and I'll tell you, we can honestly jump into sort of my thoughts and impressions. The way this thing drives is way better than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be like this boring, slow, like old BMW, you know, like I'm kind of used to sort of the M platform with the E39 M5 and the E92. You know, I'm used to sort of the out of the box, ready to go sort of track inspired car or performance inspired car. And this, it's not fast. It's 235 horsepower, so it is not fast, guys. So don't get me wrong there. I'm not saying you should get this over an E46 M3, because if you want the performance and you want the M3 sort of level of capabilities, you know, obviously that's the one to get. But for not being an M3, it really is better, and it's also better on gas. You don't have to worry about the rod bearings and the weird things that the E46 had. It drives really nice. The steering is perfect. The steering rack changes and the suspension they did is really good. It also helps that the previous owner refreshed pretty much everything of the suspension. So it's fresh suspension, bushings are good, control arms are good, everything is fresh, factory feeling, and man, this thing is so easy to live with. Should you get one, does it feel good to drive? Yes, it absolutely does. It'd be cool to put like a supercharger on it or something, but generally kind of out of the gate, I mean, it's definitely quick enough for like normal use. You know, daily driving this thing is fine. You can jump in and go. It doesn't have that weird like heavy oil like the 10W60 like the M cars have. And ooh, there's a Gen 1 Raptor. Of course, we are in the E46 right now. But anyways, yeah, so this thing is easy to live with. It's sort of my like Camry, like it's just a normal car for me, and I just really like having this thing around. So I will say, I normally would pick the coupe in pretty much every car, but after having the M5, I think I can, starting to warm up, to the 4-door sedan with the manual. And this thing definitely needs the manual. I feel like, you know, cars that are not as fast, you really need a little more engagement with them. And I think this is definitely one of those cars you want to be rowing the gears. And I just pulled out in front of someone, and the car, so the car's fast enough to throw my wallet out of the compartment, if that's any gauge for you guys, but it's not obviously a race car. All right, so we talked about probably one of the most important things to consider: how it feels, how it is to live with. All that stuff's really good. Of course, one of the things that, if you're like me, you want the car to actually look good, look cool. You want it to look the part. I think this car looks the part. It's not too flashy. I think the red, the Amola red, is perfect, and the wheels are perfect. I think the proportions are good, and what's really nice is when you're daily driving it or parking it, or there's a small tight parallel spot, you just zip in there. And the truth is, this car is actually kind of on the smaller side compared to like modern car standards, like the modern day, like whatever, G30 or G80 or whatever the heck the new ones are called. Those have got to be like the size of the E39 at this point. So I would definitely say it's nice to have like a more sort of buttoned down, lighter weight, like dialed car. Like it just feels, it feels so right. I keep going back to the way this thing drives. So I will say the outside looks really good. I wish I had sort of the painted lip spoiler. Mine actually doesn't have that. On the ZHP, you could get an option to have that, but I guess the person who optioned it didn't want that. So the inside of this car is definitely an older feel. You know, it's 17 years old, but I will say without a full like navigation screen, Bluetooth module. So I have Bluetooth, I can call, I can listen to music, Spotify, and this has the Harman Kardon sound system. So it's not gonna blow your socks off, but like I keep saying, it's very easy to live with. All right, so let's talk about some of the bad things about this car. And this kind of goes along with any older car, especially an older BMW or something like that. Stuff's gonna break. I mean, it's 17 years old. Rubber only lasts so long, plastic only lasts so long, and stuff just wears out. It's really the case with pretty much any car, but BMW specifically, they have sort of, you know, the bushings and stuff like that, you know, the gaskets and the bushings and the weird, you know, plastic parts, the window regulators, stuff like that wears out and you have to replace it. So although the car has been reliable, I've never been stranded. I've had a handful of like pain in the butt things I've had to fix. One of them being the passenger window regulator, which was something that failed on my M5 as well, something that failed on this car. Really annoying because when it happens, you hopefully can get the window back up, but if you can't, then you're stuck, and it always seems to be a day that it's raining, so that's one of the annoying things. All right, let's do a little acceleration. It's quick enough. It's quick enough. What can I say? Okay, so we're gonna slow down a little bit. So regarding maintenance, the other couple of things that have been kind of a pain that I had to fix: brake caliper in the front, I think it was passenger side, was frozen. They get all corroded and they get all funky. I had the exact same thing happen on the M5. It's kind of an age thing, I think, more than anything. You have to replace the brake caliper, and you know, you can rebuild it, but I just bought a new one. It was like $45, and just put the new one on. The last thing was something kind of weird, but I think fairly common for the E46, and that is called the final stage unit, or it's the thing that controls sort of the fan blower for the, I guess, the air conditioning and the heat and stuff like that. So what happened was, I'll show a picture. It looks like this weird alien-like device. It looks really freaking weird. But I would take the key out and even like lock the car, and the blower was still on. Like, it wouldn't turn off no matter what. The key wasn't in or anything. So one of those things, I pulled the fuse, and then I just turned the car off and whatever. So, you know, if it's your only car, obviously that's something that just is really annoying. But yeah, that was one of those things where, you know, the car wasn't broken down on the side of the road, but it's just annoying to replace stuff like that. So I've also replaced like the shifter. I had to patch the seat because there was a hole, so I actually bought one of those like fabric iron-on patches, like temporary fix, guys, don't worry. It's an iron-on patch just for now because the previous owner had a seat cover and it just looked terrible. What else have I done? I feel like I did like trunk strut things so the trunk doesn't fall down on your head, because those wear out after time. The rear emblem had the clear coat failing. Obviously I did all the detailing, you guys saw that. Oil change, you know, that kind of thing. A bunch of the fluids and spark plugs have been done, but with an older car, you know, you eventually kind of have to replace everything at some point. Thankfully, the previous owner took really good care of it. What's the conclusion? Should I recommend an E46 ZHP? You know, what to look out for? Is it fun? Is it worth it? I would say it's definitely worth it. I think this would actually be a really good daily. If this was like your only daily, I think it would be fine, even in the manual. And definitely look out for like the cooling system and the big maintenance items. So like suspension, cooling, gaskets, bushing, like control arms, like end links, all that stuff that wears out after 10 plus years of use or 100,000 miles. Mine is 116,000 now. It just has to be replaced eventually. So finding a car that has that done is definitely a plus. So another plus about a car like this is, at least recently, it seems like the values of these are definitely holding. They might be kind of slightly going up to some extent, but if you buy one, you know, I think your downside is capped pretty well. So if you get one that's been taken care of with reasonable miles and stuff, you can drive it around, and I feel like if you do lose any value, it's mainly mileage based. So I mean, there's something to say about that. Cost of ownership, you're gonna have to buy a bunch of stuff to replace, like I said, stuff that wears out, and but other than that, it's pretty easy to live with. All right guys, so I am gonna share with you the last sort of piece of information that makes me like this car more than I thought I would, and that has to do with cost and price. I don't know how else to say it. It's not really embarrassing, but it feels weird to say that, like, I bought this car for $3,900. It has 116,000 miles. It has 2 owners before me, a Molar red, a couple little bits of paint work, a couple bumpers or whatever. I feel like that's about half of what most of them go for. I feel like this is probably an $8,000 or $9,000 or $10,000 car, judging by everyone else I know that has one or whatever. So for me, the value of this car, I'm getting more than my value. Like, I bought this for $4 grand expecting it to be a $4,000 experience, and it really is closer to 10 or whatever. So for what that's worth, all right guys, I'm gonna end this video. Thanks again for watching. I like to do these little update videos. They are kind of fun. It gets me thinking. It gets me really like pressing myself. Do I keep it? Do I sell it? Do I do something different? Do I change something? And honestly, your guys' feedback does resonate with me, and it gets me thinking a little bit more, you know, because someone will point out certain aspects about my opinion and kind of remind me that whatever I'm thinking maybe makes sense, or maybe it doesn't. So anyways, leave a comment below if you'd like more information on this car. I like to do sort of the thorough reviews, thorough walkthroughs of it, so I'll do a few more of those, especially during the winter time. Not as much car stuff going on, but a few more maintenance items on this thing, a few more updates for it, and I guess that's it. So guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.